And welcome back to EduStream. Today's show about Netgear AV switches. We've got one of my favorite industry people here, John Henkel, Product Marketing Director for Netgear AV. And I want to start the show with what I tell people about everything, and that is Netgear AV switches are our number one tech support recommendation. They are our number one solution for NDI. I would say that our support and our phone calls about NDI fell by about 75% once your switches were approved. We started shipping them, and now those switches go far beyond NDI. They're a whole world of AV over IP. But John, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you. Great to be here. It's been a little while since we've been talking, Gary. So good to come back and see you.
Now, one of the things, we've always been NDI. We do NDI November. I think you were on one of our NDI November shows a couple of years ago. We're still going to be very NDI for schools, but AV over IP is a much bigger, broader spectrum. So because we could be talking to K-12 or some people in higher, big colleges and universities. Why don't you go over some of the AV over IP highlights and why it's so important for both the pro AV and the pro video businesses?
Yeah, thanks. There's so many different kinds of formats and so much out there. So some of the people we work with, and that's where we've made our name, I think, is really making sure that we listen to the industry and talk to all these different organizations. Sure, NDI really got us a big name and through a lot of promotion of you guys. Thank you. But through SDVOE, we're a founding member of that organization. You'll see IPMX, of course, now building off of SIMT 2110. We'll talk about that too coming up. All these different formats, Dante Audio, Ravenna, ES67. We're members of a lot of other organizations too for some of the sales groups and things like that. So we've just really tried to make sure that we listen and build these switches to accommodate all these different flavors of AV over IP.
And you've got a lot of flavor of switches. And I don't want to have this be a show about the switches themselves, but I want to bring this up full screen
Yeah.
just so our audience can understand that, you've got switches to put in a little lab where the lab's going to be on its own, or large switches that can run a whole enterprise and be networked together. One of the things that I think is important that people, especially in education, I want to understand is they don't have to replace their whole network to add a Netgear AV over IP switch. In fact, we know with some of the schools we work with, we'll suggest that they add one of your switches just for that, the AV over IP component, then grow bigger and attach to their network. What happens inevitably is we get the call saying we want one of the bigger switches. This is better for everything. But I want to stress to those IT and tech people within the schools that you could just roll out a single switch running the AV component, whether it be pro AV or pro video, and then you can grow and attach to the other ecosystems very easily. And you're your own ecosystem as well, which we'll go into. But talk to that a little bit, because I think that's one of the fears, especially we see in education. The IT guys start worrying, oh no, not another switch. We've been trained for years and we're certified on Cisco. Sorry, but you know what I'm saying. What do we do?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we get the question all the time, and we have information been working on for how to integrate better an AV system with whatever it is, Cisco or whoever. Yeah, I mean, we're not just making little rinky-dink AV switches. We come with 30 years of networking experience to this equation, and so what we did is just make it easier to configure for AV people. But behind it, it's still a fully managed, full up, high-end switch. So yes, we actually recommend you also do create your own separate AV network. That's been a question for years. Don't converge them. Keep the AV network separate. It's going to be easier to troubleshoot and also make your IT people happier as well. And if you need to bridge them, you can easily bridge it. We have people that can help figure out how to make that work. And we are fully, like I say, full-fledged managed switch, layer 2, layer 3, whatever you need. We can take care of that. And as you want to grow, like you mentioned, yes, we have different models and we have more coming up that'll do the top of the rack and do all of that traffic for you as you aggregate that traffic back to the rest of the network. We can do all that stuff for you. We can help plan all that too. So don't worry about all that.
Cool. And you also now have pro Wi-Fi access points, which I think is important for education because they're so Chromebook, oriented of the Wi-Fi everywhere. And I think, it's just great that that's now a part of your whole system for those people in the pro AV, pro video world.
Yeah, people kind of forget about some of that on the business side. We made our name at Netgear in general on high-end residential works, and those are great products as well, the Orbi and things like that. But for a business network to be have the same coverage in some ways and just be more flexible for what you're doing We have pro Wi-Fi access points. We're focusing on Wi-Fi 7. That's the most recent
Yep.
Wi-Fi version out there, right? So we have a couple of those. And the other thing I point out, these are available in the AV channel. So you're not going to find some of these on Amazon. We have different products for business than we do for home. These are purpose-built for businesses to get you the best, fastest Wi-Fi you can get, especially for large crowds as well. You can accommodate more and more connections. And that's what we have for Wi-Fi offerings.
Yeah, so for schools especially, they want to reach out and work with a local integrator IT company that can buy these products through the specialized channels and get them over there. But also if you're a reseller who sells to schools and maybe your primary business was just whiteboards or, audio
Mhm.
systems or projectors, this is a good thing to look into and learn about. And one of the things that we have this slide of all your Pro AV manufacturer partners up here, which I think is important because it shows that you guys are incredibly open and flexible. And
Absolutely. We
I'm
learned
just
that early
laughing because
on.
I've never seen such a full screen of logos that are too small for me to read in my life. But keep doing your job, John, because this used to be about 8 logos at one time, right?
Right. I've seen that grow and grow. It's how do how do you best display that? I don't know. One big slide. It's impressive. I know. And that's the team working on just making sure we are listening. That's the whole key to this. That's the key to our success is being able to be open. We have special profiles for many of these different manufacturers, not all of them. Some of them just operate on the standard video profile or audio profile. But we know that those things are unique and some things need certain settings tweaked a certain way. Or I know some people are using like a switch for Dante only and then doing video on a different switch. You don't have to do that with us. You can use the same switch for some of those configurations. So that's why we're making sure that we listen to the marketplace. We take all these manufacturers. This is like over 400 right now, and we
Yep.
have more coming.
So I'm going to bring up this broadcast IP standards. I think it's great you dropped Dante. We're talking about NDI. A lot of IT people, especially in education, not to put educational IT people down, but I know you guys are protecting, very protective, and you have a little security things that go beyond a lot of corporations. But one of the things I love about this when you started talking about it is if I've got a 24 port switch, I can assign ports for Dante, for NDI, for Zixi, whatever I want to do. And it's not where I have to go down to like code level and type stuff in. It is color coded, so simple, so easy. And in fact, I know we're going to go into it a little bit, but I love the Engage software you guys have done. And we've done some whole shows on it, but it's actually a GUI for setting up all this complexity that I started to talk to. So I want to really harp on the Netgear AV and the Pro AV, Pro Video stuff we do. So this slide, it's a big slide. I want you to bring it up full screen, and guys, you can download it. But just talk about these different formats and why AV over IP isn't just NDI anymore.
No, I think, and the reason I put this in here, it's a lot of text. I know a lot of tiny text, but you can download it. I think I sent you guys a PDF as well you can use. There's a lot of good stuff here. Even if you're a seasoned IT professional, this is important because it shows you the difference in the evolution of all this from SMPTE, the old days, which I certainly remember. I was one of those guys in early broadcast with all these different kinds of cables carrying all these different signals. Now it's all over IP. And of course, the timing of all this stuff is critical, especially for broadcast. NDI is taking care of a lot of that, which is great. And Dante has helped, SRT, all these different formats help in certain ways. And then people are looking at SMPTE 2110 now as like the gold standard, where you really got to be careful about setting up your network the proper way. You have things called a grandmaster clock and your other transparent clock, your boundary clocks. They all have to make sure that those are set up correctly to make sure that audio video is in sync when it's transmitted around the facilities.
John, we're seeing SMPTE 2110 starting in some broadcast type stuff, but the broadcast people even are going to it aren't going like rip everything out, put in 2110. They're more doing test proof of concepts, a little area over there. So I don't want to scare schools yet. I'm going to say that 2110 is really not for education. I mean, maybe if you're Ohio State or Penn State, you're putting in a stadium, yes, but for schools and education, I think they're more NDI, Dante, SRT. I think that's where our educators are mainly going to be playing in. Would you agree with that?
I think so. You're certainly, if they make it a little bit easier for 2110 to be implemented, that'll help in some cases. But yeah, it's a little bit more daunting perhaps. But I think Netgear is making that easier by offering switches that are number one, less expensive. And then again, like you mentioned with the Engage software, our AVOS, making it easier to configure then. So those two will help, I think, bring a few more people into the 2110 world, but you don't have to use that for sure. There's plenty of people who are not using that and getting great results with NDI, like you mentioned, or SRT.
Cool. And this next slide you put together, I think it's real important because I know, like for colleges, they're going to want to have multiple. They're going to have a studio. They might have an equipment room. They might have a control room, and all those switches can be tied together. And then you can have a switch on each one that's the appropriate switch for that room. They can all be tied together into a core or a master switch. That's a little above my pay grade. In like easy language, explain to how a school would go about doing that. Let's say they had a studio, they had an equipment room, and maybe they had a control room that was adjacent to the basketball arena.
Yeah, I mean, it illustrates it here from the traditional sense of those key areas where you're probably going to have the different facilities, and those had to be closer together with the old coax days of cabling,
Oh
and those
yeah.
can now be they can be moved anywhere. They can be almost miles away, really, across a WAN. People are working on some of those things too. But generally, these things are old ways with having cables connecting them all, and now it's just over a network. That's the real simple explanation for all that. The key to that is all these clocks. So there has to be something like, a time-based corrector in some ways, or a gen lock in facilities back in the old days. You're going to have a master clock somewhere to make sure that when you send those audio and video signals out, they're going to stay in sync with each other, from the camera to the audio mixer to the console to the teleprompter, everything. So that's why you want to look at the system and have what's called the Grandmaster clock. If you have one of those in your facility, great. Our switches can adhere to that and time everything and sync everything up through that. If you don't have one of those, you can use one of our switches that has that capability built in. We have 2 at the moment. More of those are coming. So we can set up that sync and that clocking across your network and have all the other switches below it, which can be a mix of those different switch types we showed earlier, 4250 series, 4350 series. And then we can work on all that. We can set all that up for you easier through our Engage software. So we'll set up the Grandmaster clock, boundary clocks, all this kind of stuff. We just set it up for you automatically. You don't have to worry about it. And then everything is going to be in sync. Sounds easy.
And we're going to go into a case study on the University of Leeds. But before we do it, I know we get into this later in the presentation, but I think it's very important to say that one of the things that separates you guys from the competition, the rest of the switches out there in the whole world, has nothing to do with hardware or software to me. It has to do with the pre-sales and support that you can get from Netgear directly. So if you are an IT administrator in your school, you can call us. We'll put you in contact with the folks at Netgear. You can teach them directly. These guys will lay out a whole network topography for you. They'll go over the gotchas. The more information you give them, the better they'll get back. But you guys are phenomenal. And we know we've had some schools like Leeds, wasn't one we work with, but we've had other schools where you guys have done like consulting work that would have been, tremendously expensive, but is insanely valuable. And it was just to put in, like a 48 port switch. But you guys are so good at what you do. And I just think that service and sales and technical expertise and your ability to train people and the fact that you even offered certified training. So if I do want to be a school that does this, I can set up a class and teach my kids how to get certified if it's something, because we love students using the stuff. But also, as my IT department, can make sure someone's certified for this. This is not rocket science, but once you're certified, it's easy to begin with. When you're certified, there's virtually nothing you can't do. So kudos to you guys for that knowledge part and sharing that knowledge with the world. We'll get that into a little bit more. Let's talk about this University of Leeds case study, because you guys really knocked that one out of the park.
Yeah, so this is one of several colleges, universities that we've taken care of. And it's the same kind of problems, the same challenges you're finding out. They're seeing AV being used more and more across the campus. They want to make sure that IT staff and AV people can actually implement this on their own and figure it out. And then scalability. Scalability is one of the number one factors for going over to a system over IP, for sure, because you can easily add whenever you need to. Add an endpoint, add an encoder or decoder, add a display, a camera, whenever you need to. And that's something they want to make sure they updated their system for.
Yeah,
so
John,
that's what
I
they
just
did.
want to say the scalability of AV over IP, it's a whole new world. It's not like people have to be crawling around in the walls and stuff. You want to add a room and it's on your network, you add the room and it lights up and everything sees everything. So sorry to interrupt you. You're on a roll. keep
You
going.
know, those are it. Those are the key points. And you see a lot more of this than I do. I mean, I'm a marketing guy.
Yep.
You're actually in the trenches seeing this stuff. So that's important. And I think people realize that now when you're looking at a new system, you might as well put it in AV over IP. Unless it's
Yep.
one conference room, then you might as well. But for universities especially, you want to do that. So what did they do? They ended up looking at our M4250 line with that smooth front face, the ports in the back, and all that stuff, to make sure that we use some of the goodness that we offer. So IGMP Plus is something we developed and delivered on our switches to make sure that the signals don't go across the network blindly. When that's something IT people got a kind of a bad taste in their mouth with, when other switch manufacturers they turn it on and then you plug in an encoder and it gets flooding the network across the entire campus. That's the reason you want to use our switches, and also make sure it's a separate AV network. Those are huge. We do things like some others do with auto lag, auto trunk as well, to make it easier to add on more switches as you try to get tons of those streams going across the campus for multiple classrooms. You have to then go from switch to switch. And we have features in our software to help do that automatically. So you plug in two switches. Oh, you want to lag those or connect those together if you don't know what lag means, or trunk them together. So the VLANs you set up, the segregation for certain kinds of traffic, will then be replicated across the entire network. And those are just simple little things for us, but boy, that's a huge help for any network administrator, especially certainly an AV person as well, but even an IT person.
I think the results speak for themselves, because this has been up and running. It's been reliable and bulletproof. They've already expanded on it, so it's growing and it's scalable. And I think the other thing that I can't stress enough is you've empowered the staff with training so that they can handle this on their own. And it's a system that can be fully, although video seems threatening, with the right gear and the right knowledge, the problem is solved. And Netgear has solved the problem better than anyone else.
Yeah, we're trying. Again, we're listening to the people to figure out where we can help the most. And that's really where it comes into play. Like, we certainly want to sell switches and software, of course, but we want to make sure that people are empowered to do this on their own and can do this multiple times, because that's where the key growth comes from, is just people feeling good about what they do and being able to do this on their own.
I think it's a level of confidence. If you're looking to get into AV over IP and you're starting, you want to have the confidence that you're working with the right gear and the right people. Netgear is. But also, if you've got a system that you're using and you're going to expand it or replace it, the same holds true. And once again, we're not saying that other more expensive switches can't do the job. It's just they're a lot harder to configure and keep configured. They're easily, from a video over IP portion, very easy for someone to do something that they think won't have any effect, that can totally, screw us up, with auto discovery and some of the other stuff that's out there. So once again, future ready. I don't want to call it future proof, but I want to call it future ready and confident. We are confident that this is the right tool for the job in your switches. So let's get into a little bit about those pro services you guys offer, because I think for schools it's so important.
Oh yeah, and this is something we offer for free, like you say. I mean, we'll see what happens as we start scaling up and up and up, but this is what we realized early on. Again, we want to empower people to be able to do this on their own. And for AV people specifically who are new to networking, they weren't always sure of that. But also, as we mentioned here, there's the wireless design as well. We're talking about wireless access points. One of the things we do for free is give you a heat map across your facility, whether it's a single building, multiple buildings. You give us some data about those buildings. We'll tell you the best placement for the access points to get the optimal coverage at each band, because now we have 3 bands of wireless. So we'll make sure that we help you with where to place those, make sure you get the coverage. But to your network design is where we started with this, with the Pro AV network design. We'll figure out what switches are the right switches that you need. We'll design your network and we'll help you pull it off. And we'll work with you, whether it's nights or weekends. This team is incredible and always expanding. It's a worldwide service, by the way. So we're not just US based, but it's a team of people who really will help you. They understand the predicament, and they're really qualified IT people, high-level system engineers, but they also now have been working with AV for a number of years, and they deal with hundreds of projects. So they know the situation you're in has probably been done by somebody else before, and they can offer some tips and tricks how to make it work better.
And now let's dig into Netgear Academy. I mean, you've got your own certifications and Avixa certifications with Pro AV. I mean, I think that's so great. And just keep up the good job with this. I really feel that in the world of education, certifications matter. I mean, we all want our degrees, we all want our diplomas and stuff like that. But I also want to stress that this is a growing industry. If you are a high school or a college offering courses in IT and specifically AV over IP, will have graduates who come out with a real marketable skill that a lot of people don't have. So if you are looking to do this pro AV stuff, this pro video stuff, I encourage you, involve your students, give them the opportunity to be a part of it, and even better, give them the opportunity to be certified when they graduate from your program with these certifications. It's a confidence builder for the kid, but it also, we need people who can do this stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
pro AV and pro video is growing faster than the amount of people we have. And John, you and I joke about it. We have from the beginning. Most of the people in our industry look like guys like us. We're wearing glasses. We might have hair. It's a lot of gray. And this world
Yeah,
of AV over IP is a young man's game. And it's for these young
absolutely.
girls and boys to get involved with, to learn about a whole industry that's there. But it's a real marketable skill. I know we have often some of our dealers will be calling us saying, I lost my AV, my guy who knew this, he went over to someone else. And it's why? Because he's getting paid more from the next
Yeah,
guy. So there's always jobs. There's entry level jobs. There's jobs working for dealers who do this and design the stuff. There's for schools that put it in the corporate world. It's a real.
it's everywhere.
Part of what I'm trying to infuse EduStream with is that it's not just about using our products to create content. It's about teaching your kids how to use and learn and become certified in our products because it's a real career opportunity. We've done some shows on that as well. I know I hijacked this one a little bit, but I know our guys just passed one of the Netgear trainings, so we were really psyched about that, and they were
Cool.
proud, and we were proud of them. And it's a good solid training, but it's not like a gotcha training where it's like, we showed you a blue dot, where was it? It's really about using the gear.
Well, and it's also not just about Netgear's gear. We have some great courses on just like what's a VLAN, some straight ahead normal networking questions. So it isn't just, oh, I have my Netgear certification. That's big as well, but it's generally you learn more about the industry in general. So that's worth it.
Cool. So I want to take you off script a little bit because we're a little bit ahead of time and I want to give you the full half hour. Why not? So
Cool.
where do you see this going? Do you see these AV over IP formats like merging into one great format to save them all? Or do you just see companies like Netgear being so open and so good that you just make everyone else's stuff work as long as they're giving you some kind of spec, some kind of developer toolkit?
Yeah, it's the latter, certainly. I think in this world, the good thing is that people are adhering to an Ethernet specification. So switches like Netgear's, but other manufacturers' switches will work as well. There are other things in the past like HD-base-T that was only point to point, whereas IP is ubiquitous across. It's an Ethernet standard. We'll see
Yep.
more of that. As far as like determining who's going to win, there's still a battle for a standard like IPMX or SDVoE or whatever. Those are still going to be developed and still be used in their proper application. There are times where you want that high quality, low latency stream, and that's important as well. And there are times where you don't need that. And you can do NDI with low latency, but it still gives great signal quality, very flexible. So I think all those kind of standards will be living on for sure.
And to tie into EduStream, one of the things I want to tie together is we've used the term pro AV and pro video. So I want to define it a little better. Pro AV, that's your conference rooms and your unified communications and stuff like that, and even a Zoom or a Teams call. Whereas pro video is more where you're doing your lecture captures or you have a studio or you're producing sporting events. And the whole point I want to make here is that through AV over IP, it's the same set, same network that can run everything. I don't have to wire separately. So that means if I'm doing a pro something in the studio and I've got people in a conference room, I could bring that footage into there. If I've got people in the conference room, I can bring them in as a guest into something in the studio. I could be sports that are out in the field, in the stadium. It's all that same technology that ties everything together. And the technology is the broad umbrella of AV over IP,
Yeah.
but the different formats that are there are really amazing. And what I'm going to say is, when you look at NDI, Dante, and SRT with those three, there's virtually nothing an educator can't do at that point.
No, you're done. If you learn anything about those, they all have a unique setup things and they have unique vendors for all that stuff, and they're all have some good pluses and minuses for sure. But in general, learning about networking is where you got to start, and that's where we realized everything was being used of our product line being used in AV over IP. And thankfully, it's all just Ethernet to us. But with that said, there are certain things we did on our side to make it easier to implement, and like I mentioned earlier, not flood the network, things like that. So that's where it's going to come down to having people understand networking in general, because that's going to be the basis for everything you're doing from here on out.
So, John, anytime I have a guest on, I like to give them the last word. I think you just did that phenomenally. So, I'm going to throw the last word and stress again for everyone who's getting into AV over IP, NDI, Netgear AV switches are our number one recommendation, not only because they work great, you'll have less tech support, they are expandable, they are scalable, they are future minded, they are reliable, and they are affordable. So, did I miss anything about Netgear AV switches?
You got it, man. You're working for us now. You've got the job. You're in.
I thank you for coming to the show. I think we did a great show. And just as my wrap up is that I want to stress that networking of AV over video isn't just something you need to do for your university or your school system in order to produce video, but it's also a great thing to teach your kids about so that they can have a skill set and some knowledge for something that even if they just know a little bit, but there is certifications available if they want to. John, great show. I knew it was going to be. We're about the half-hour wrap-up. I want to remind everyone we've got prizes and giveaways and all kinds of good stuff through EduStream. Keep tuning in. Multiple days. Great chances to win prizes. April 22nd through the 24th. If you missed any of the shows, they'll be available for download on demand. Thank you so much, John. Great show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.